Go here. So hello everyone. This is another episode in the money series that I am delighted to bring you over the next few weeks, because I enjoy talking to different spiritual people, facilitators, and just getting their perspective on how they see money, how perhaps they can help us to turn around a negative story around money. And today I have Lena Papadopoulos with me, and Lena has been on the podcast a couple of times, more probably than a couple of times, and I'm so delighted to have you back here, Lena. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
And we kind of know about you. We've heard your story a little bit. We had your life purpose session, unfolding here on this podcast. But can you just give us perhaps a few little points for those listeners who perhaps are not familiar with you, or perhaps are just joining us in this episode?
Yeah, so I am a life purpose and leadership coach, and my work is really aimed at supporting heart-centered, soul-led, purpose-driven people to embrace their gifts and alchemize their pain into power and potential, and share their magic as medicine with the world. And one of the tools that I use in my work is astrology, evolutionary astrology specifically. So for my approach, we kind of have like two paths to purpose, or almost like two types of purpose. And one is our life's purpose, which is really the expression of our truth and our essence in the world. And the other is our soul's purpose, which is really peeling back the layers of conditioning and programming and navigating the human experience in order to learn particular lessons that we can teach others, just like a return to soul. And I think it's really through our soul's purpose, that we are really able to express our life's purpose in a powerful, aligned way. Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you. And today in this I keep saying session. I feel like we're in session, but I mean episode. I've been saying that. Oh my gosh. I mean, in this episode, I would love for you to draw from both your tools that you use, astrology, but also the wisdom that you have, being this sort of life purpose coach. Um, but before we get into that, perhaps you could share with the listeners, what was your story around money, maybe growing up to how it is now, in case it's different. If you want to share anything, just so we can get a picture of like where you sit with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there there are so many layers, I think, to my money story. um I was I was the child of immigrants. My parents were Greek. They immigrated to the US. I grew up there. um and there's kind of like a particular narrative around money or resources or security, and really following a particular path to be successful and to have financial safety. um so there was that kind of layer. Then there was actually the fact that we did have money. My family was, I would say, like very financially secure, but money was used as a tool for control and manipulation, primarily by my dad. And so he would use it against me and my mom, as this way to kind of hold it over our heads, or almost like to buy love, or, if we were not acting in the way that he wanted or expected, it was because we were ungrateful for his financial contributions. And so there was just like this cloud in that sense. And then, because he very much used money to control my mother, and also like wouldn't let her work, she was kind of like stuck in this situation of actually being in a very unsafe situation, but feeling like she couldn't leave it because um she wasn't really like educated, she didn't have degrees, she it would be difficult for her to find a job, and she felt almost like stuck in that marriage because she wanted myself and my sister to be taken care of. And so there was kind of like this, yeah, this like being stuck between a rock and a hard place for me of, receiving support, receiving financial support comes with a price that you will have to pay for this in some other way. So it feels unsafe to be supported. And then on the other hand, for my mom, I'm internalizing this message of like, and not only is it unsafe to be supported by others, but you also like, it's not possible to make it on your own. And so it's really, I mean, it's interesting how has played into my life over the course of my life and even presently, because actually within my own chart, my money experience is key and central and core to my soul's purpose. And it's very evident how that conditioning through my family experience really plays into that evolutionary journey of my soul and the lessons I'm supposed to be learning and what I'm supposed to be, yeah, just what I'm really supposed to be stepping into in this lifetime. And so yeah, the money is like a very significant part of my chart. Mhm.
So thank you, Lena, for sharing this, because and there's so many wonderful points that you've touched on, but um, it was really important to me to set the foundation, like the playing field for our listeners who, might think that you and I, because we have perhaps access to these tools or abilities or connections or anything, that perhaps we don't have these problems at all ever, or stories. And your story, mm, I mean, I could really feel it, especially from your mom's perspective, because I mean, I'm a family of immigrants as well, and being in a foreign country as well adds to it, right? It's like we really feel stuck. Um, Probably more than if you were in your own country where you have maybe a bigger support network. There's not the language barrier. Um, but it's interesting that that your money story is tied up to your chart. So where are you at with this now? Because, and I guess the reason I'm asking is, if let's say someone has something similar in their chart, does that mean they're doomed and they will forever have this? Or like, are you even trying, like wanting to change it, or is there no point?
So I mean, from my perspective, if for somebody with something similar, it's not like a doomsday sentence kind of thing. Like, I am aware based on my chart and how all the pieces fit together that this is going to be a big part of my journey, and probably always will be in some shape or form, even as I like, let's say I ascend or elevate to like a new level of being able to hold money. I mean, it's going to come with different challenges and layers and self-doubts. I mean, I think it's always going to be part of my journey, but not necessarily that it has to be a struggle or a really negative thing, because also with the chart, I do, as you said, like it's a tool. And so I can learn through the chart what are the ways that I can work with this challenge in a healthier way, in a more supportive way, in a more ease-filled way. Um, I mean, yes, I do think like in my case, it's always going to be present as like a theme in my life, but not necessarily right that I'm always going to suffer because of this. It's really something from which I can draw a lot of power if I choose to really engage with that soul lesson, right?
Mm.
Um, and so in my case, I have very significant placements in the second house and in the eighth house. And those are the two houses connected to money in the birth chart. So the second house is very connected to um, our own income, the money we generate for ourselves, our sense of security and safety, and really it's connected to themes of survival, but also like our self-worth, our self-esteem, our personal values, and how that plays a role in our money story. And then the eighth house, its opposite, is really representative more of, in many cases, other people's money or other people's resources and our access to those resources, or investments or inheritance. Like it's somehow connected to um
The unexpected money as well.
it could be this is also like the eighth house is quite hidden and taboo, so there could be elements of like secrecy around money, or yeah, the unexpected, like things that are kind of hidden or in the dark. And so I have both my Pluto and my South Node in the eighth house, meaning I'm coming with a very strong past life signature around those themes. And my Pluto polarity point and my North Node are in the second house. So I'm really working toward those themes. And so, what that really means is that with the eighth house, my past life experiences have been very marked by having access to other people's resources and being in positions of favor, or like being, the counselor or the advice giver to somebody who had a lot of power and was in a position of influence. And so I was very supported, but on other, like through other people's resources. And because my eighth house is also in the sign of Scorpio, which is like a double whammy because eighth house is also Scorpio energy, and the planet Pluto there, which is also scorpionic energy. There's just like themes of betrayal and control and manipulation and abuse and misuse. And so even though I had this access to money, people used it against me, right? And this is like is mirrored in the relationship I had with my dad and the
Thing to
experience I
say,
had with
yeah.
my, right? And what I'm moving toward in the second house is really learning to establish my own financial security, to create my own resources, and to do that from a place of self-worth,
Mm.
and really believing that that's possible for me. So it's also interesting that I inherit kind of this belief from my mother, like that you can't do it on your own, because my journey is meant to be disentangling myself from
Mm.
other people's resources in order to create my own, but also using discernment around when is it safe or not safe to receive support from someone else, because I also don't think I'm supposed to completely like cut out other people, right? I can also be supported like through connections and through relationships, but the point is not to be dependent on that or to become enmeshed with those people. Um, I'm really meant to be building my own foundations rooted in my own self-worth. Um, and so for me, the flow of money is very tied to the degree to which I believe in myself and I have confidence in myself and I trust in myself. And so those have been, yeah, just like really big aspects of what I've been learning in this life.
It's so interesting to me. It's
Mhm.
interesting to me because from like the Akashic record, or like from the soul's perspective, it's interesting that we call these sort of the karmic cycles, right? So you've had lifetimes where you had access to other people's resources, but there's a certain thing attached to it. And then in this lifetime, uh, and no doubt that your parents played maybe some roles with you in those past lifetimes, but then you chose them in this lifetime again. Your dad, the controlling one, let's say, and then your mom going like, you can't do it. And yet that is your purpose to kind of break that soul contract almost, because it's almost like and we say this like we never break cords with our family members, because we have these cords in order to continue working together and drawing and giving energy. But we can break a soul contract if, because you guys have written out a soul contract before coming here that is, okay, I'm going to be the controlling one, I'm going to support you by telling you you can't do it, there's no way, and then you have to break away from this. But sometimes the easiest way to break away from this in the human life is not by trying to rely on maybe my parents will change, maybe if I do this they will finally see that this is worth it or that I can do it, but rather kind of going like, all right, I love you, but I'm going to be over here doing my stuff, becoming sort of independent or relying on using your resources to make the money. And then you can heal that energetic whatever it is, perhaps for your mom or for your dad, because they will see this, right? But often, and I'm using you as an example here, Lena, because it just fascinated me, but often I guess we get stuck in this. My mom doesn't believe in me, my dad doesn't love me, he's controlling, I can't rely on them, I can't come with them, I can't come to them with any ideas because they don't believe in me, and we just get so trapped in it. So landing the plane, I can see through our many conversations that the chart that you do isn't like, here it is, you're doomed, this is what it says, but rather kind of goes like, oh, so I'm meant to do this or break away from this. And even though this is ongoing, it's kind of like helping me to evolve, because there's a hurdle. Okay, I can get over the hurdle. That's how I saw it. Everything that you were saying, I hope that's kind of, but yeah,
Yeah,
from
yeah, exactly. And like that is really, I mean, across all the charts that I work with, at the core of it all, like every soul is really learning and trying to break free of past life limitations, right? Or attachments or something that's keeping them stuck or in particular patterns or loops. So if we notice that we have patterns with money, right? Like there is probably a message there of like there's
yeah,
something we're meant to be doing differently. And so we need to like shift our perspective, reorient, start to think about it in a different way, relate to it in a different way. And like I always tell the people I work with, like imagine yourself in an actual relationship with whatever it is. And in this case, money. So if you and money are in a partnership, like what kind of partner are you being to your money? And that can reveal a lot about our patterns, our unhealthy like tendencies, or the dynamic that we that we tend to like create or recreate with money, um or any other thing, insert X,
that
yeah.
answers my next question. How do you view money? I love that. You just went in there. So if someone is now having a negative money story, because I believe as well, that acknowledging and first of all, I guess, seeing the pattern or the root and then acknowledging it, it's already like 80% of the work is done. um so let's say someone knows, oh, I've got a bit of a money story or scarcity story, and I can see how it's playing out in my life, and I do really desperately want to turn this around. Now, you started taking us down that trail already by saying, see yourself in a relationship with money. What else would you say? Because you know how it is when we're in the trenches. That's when this so-called woo-woo staff is like, no, that's not going to work. You know, I need to maybe pick up extra shifts or get another job, or everything's hopeless. I'll never get anything, you know, and it's always going to be like this for me. What would you say would be then like, maybe the next thing that they could do once they start seeing themselves in a relationship with money? Or maybe you can explore that a little bit with us.
So I think, I mean, one of the most powerful aspects of exploring the relationship with money in that way is, as you said, like the awareness that comes about, right? And then a lot of times, what happens once people become more aware of the actual relationship they have with money or the dynamic that is playing out, they start to feel guilty or shameful, or, you know, like, oh, duh, should know better, or like, I'm stupid for continuing to do this thing again and again, right? There's a lot of like self-judgment or criticism or punishment or self-blame that happens. And that like further disconnects us from our truth or from spirit, or, you know, it just like further, it creates more internal division and disconnection. And so then we, you know, we're almost like fragmented. Whereas if we acknowledge and understand, okay, whatever this pattern is, because anytime really that I think we're engaging in patterns, we somehow learned to do that, to either because, you know, it is like part of what is familiar to us, and we internalize particular um patterns that then play out in different ways in our lives, or we really developed those patterns as a protective mechanism, as a way to create a sense of safety for ourselves. So when we can recognize, like, oh, either I created this pattern to serve me actually originally, or I absorbed this pattern through the patriarchy or capitalism or religion or whatever it is that has influenced me. Like, okay, now I can understand why it's happening. And especially if it's the case of like, I've done this to create safety for myself or to protect myself, then, you know, the the key there is to have self-compassion towards oneself. It's really about self-forgiveness and like, yeah, the compassion of, okay, I understand why you did that. And there's not a reason to feel guilty or shameful or to judge yourself or criticize yourself. It's just like, hey, now I have this awareness, which empowers me to make a different choice, right? To create a new dynamic, to reshape my relationship with money. And I think that's really how we move forward, is by embracing the parts of ourselves that have maybe engaged in ways that we like deem like wrong or bad or negative in some way, and to embrace those parts of ourselves with love, right? Because it's through the integration of all parts of us that we really return to wholeness, which is, I mean, ultimately, I think why we're trying to learn these lessons on our soul's journey, right? It's to
It's the
return.
wholeness, yeah, even that. And I think a lot of people think they need to, like, especially when you hear yogis talk about ascension or um becoming sort of this higher version that you feel like, oh crap, I will never get to that in this lifetime. Um, but actually, it's not about that. It's about kind of coming full circle to feeling love and feeling whole here, where it's really hard. I mean, it's easy where, our souls are up there, not in a physical body, spirit, heaven, whatever we want to call this. When we connect with the sea of consciousness, again, it's easy to feel fulfilled and love and whole. But then when you come here, you are so far removed from it. And I do believe that we get caught up in the human stuff here and the material things, which isn't a judgment. It's fine because we're here to play. It's like taking a child to a toy store but saying you can't play with the toys, you can just look at them. So I feel like that's what we're here to do, and play with money, and play with like if you want cars or houses or whatever it is that you are. And I do believe, though, that depending on a soul's evolution, you will care a lot about this, or you will not care so much about this, but maybe about experiences. Again, and there's no judgment, it's just where your soul's at. But my question now, Lena, to you is, so some people, I feel like there's two groups of people. People who believe you have to work hard for money, you have to be doing the things to have money. If you don't work, or if you don't work X amount of hours or as hard as, you're not going to make it. You're not going to, and this goes for studying, getting a good university degree, becoming high ranking, whatever. So there's that group of people, but there's also a group of people I've noticed who believe in the energetics, and money is, yes, it's the physical thing, but actually money is energy. And so they believe more in, if you create a state of being within you that is harmonious to the money, whatever the money you desire, that will just come. Now, my personal experience has been working hard did not necessarily bring me more money, but I have more experience that doing the inner work, what you've described, but also energetically manipulating energy, I had evidence where the money that I didn't expect to get that day showed up. So I used to work as a beautician lash stylist. So on Sunday, I would open up my diary and I could see, okay, I've got, let's say, 10 appointments or 20 appointments booked in. So roughly this is going to bring me this much money. Some might cancel, some walk-ins, but I knew how much money I can expect. When I started doing what I'm doing now, the Akashic Master said, you have to forget about that, because that's not how this works. So they said to me, you can't open your diary and go by what's there, and they actually showed me, I was out with my family having a day off, we were doing stuff, and two people booked a session in, and I'm like, I don't even know where they came from, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always grateful for that. But what I'm trying to say is, I have more evidence. If we look at evidence, I have more evidence that the energetics worked for me more than the hard work. But I would love to know what your take on this is.
Well, I mean, the saying, as above, so below, as within, so without. So I really think that our outer world is a reflection of our inner world. And so, I mean, again, like even with my own money experience, right? What in my chart and in my purpose, generating this thing outside of me, this money, is really dependent on how I view myself and how I relate to myself. And I think, like, if my outer world is a reflection of my inner world, then if my belief is that I have to work really hard for money, well, that then is true in my lived experience, because my lived experience is a reflection of the belief that I hold. So I have to work really hard for money. And energetically, I may actually be creating the conditions to keep me in that place, because, like you said, gathering the evidence, right? If somebody is holding on to that belief, then they are gathering evidence from the world around them that that belief is true. And then they unconsciously behave in a way that reinforces that belief. So the inner world creates the outer world. And so, yeah, I think like so much of it is really about the inner work that we're doing, the beliefs that we're holding around money, the beliefs we're holding about ourselves in relation to money, and what's possible for us and what we're capable of. And so I would say that also, like in my experience, there is like a very strong connection between the energetics and the beliefs, and the frequency I'm emitting because of my beliefs.
Yeah, I love that you said that in these particular words, the inner and the outer world. I love that because, I mean, that deeply resonated with me. But I just want to say, um, like, even when I was outlining the group that, believes hard work and stuff, like the previous generations, pre-war, post-war, especially the post-war, again, from an Akashic perspective, those were souls who came down here to start building, rebuilding, laying down foundations, and they went about emotions or spirituality so much. They were a little bit more disconnected, but they agreed to come down here and just basically do the hard work to kind of rebuild the structure so that the next lot of souls that will come is going to be able to smooth out the pathways and start bringing in that light and energy. And then, of course, the third one, which is like now, I believe from late 1990s, maybe beginning of 2000, they are here to really elevate it, really bringing that new earth, because of all the other ones. So basically what I'm trying to say is I don't want to judge anyone who does believe in that, because, if it works, and also with gratitude to those who did rebuild a lot of structures, for us, because they believed in that. But I think as we rise up and as the frequency on earth changes, it is no longer required, but yet it is still embedded in a lot of us, and we're trying to shed this, I think. And so someone like you, I feel, is so paramount to this, because you can really help shine, a light on, this is what's happening, this is how you can share all this. So I really, I mean, again, I'm grateful that you're here, we're having this conversation. But would I be right in assuming that, aside from sort of focusing on a life purpose, if someone felt that there was some money stories and they wanted to know whether it's, written in the stars for them, or how they can, change it, whether they could come and see you for that too?
Hmm. Yeah, well, I typically, my readings are focused on soul's purpose. So if that is connected to somebody's purpose in some way, it will come through. I don't typically, like, personally, like if somebody wants to come and have a reading around money, I wouldn't necessarily do something like that. Again, because I'm not like an astrologer per se. Like
Yeah.
in I'm just using astrology in a very specific way in my work, so I'm not offering like a wide variety of types of readings like most astrologers would. But almost everybody has some theme or signature connected to money in their soul's evolutionary journey. So even if it's not a central focus like it is in my chart, for example, it will still likely be present in some way, somehow, through the conditioning, the relationship with caregivers, the trauma signatures that come in through past lives and the way we kind of like carry those on with us. Sometimes it's connected to people's like skipped steps or particular like challenges they faced in past lives, that there's still sort of like progress that needs to be made in that area. So it really does almost always come through in some way, but it, like, at least in the way that I'm offering readings, it's very varied as to how significant it
Because I mean, it
is.
could be an entrepreneur or someone who's like, I've been struggling to get this business off the ground, and for some reason I'm coming up against roadblocks, or I can't, whatever, and I don't understand what's happening, or they say, they could say, I start things, I don't finish things, and I kind of always, spend money, get excited, dive in, and then like nothing comes of it, and I never seem to make money. So I guess those people, if they came to you and you looked at their chart from a purpose perspective, that would probably give you and them, I guess, insights into what is happening, what the roadblocks are, yeah? Or like someone who is stuck at a particular level and wanting to advance to the next one, but they don't know how because whatever they try doesn't work.
Right. Yeah. And actually, I mean, in the case of most people I've worked with who are actually entrepreneurs, their career or their money is playing some kind of important role in their chart and in their journey. And like, just for example, the most recent reading I did, this person sort of like core purpose, the core evolutionary desire of the soul is to learn to create, to create safety and security for herself. And that, I mean, there's like a lot of childhood conditioning that created a feeling of insecurity and a lack of safety in different ways, like emotionally, physically, financially. And so this, like, this aspect of her journey is actually very connected to her career and the work that she does in the world. And the more that she learns how to find a sense of safety from within, the more her money's going to flow. And it's actually like for her, very connected, like the her experience of transformation is very connected to her career, and the ways in which she's kind of pushed towards the lesson she's meant to be learning is that she often experiences a feeling of stuckness, of like not being able to move forward, or like confusion, a lack of clarity around what she's actually supposed to be doing in her work or career. So she's been doing a lot of experimenting, and she has had her own business for years, but she's taken on so many different like roles and actually like been had within the one business so many different businesses, and it's frustrating to her. And when she experiences frustration, for her, when it's connected to work, it's a sign that she needs to revisit stuff from her childhood, because the two are very connected. So everything is, everything is interconnected. It's all playing off of the other thing. It's all feeding into something else. I mean, so there are always kind of these lines that we can draw to see this relationship between different parts of our lives and how they really speak to each other.
Wow, that was quite powerful. Oh my gosh, so much resonance. Lena, is there anything that you wish I asked you today that I didn't, that you might want to plug in or share?
Um, well, I think I will just share for people. I mean, maybe you need to have like a basic understanding of astrology, right, to be able to look at your own chart. But just to share kind of the key points within the chart that actually point to money in some way.
That would be
Um,
amazing.
yeah, it is, like I said, the second and eighth house. So depending on like what planets are there or what really aspects they're making to other planets, like the second and eighth house are really important in connection to money. Um, Also, the signs of Taurus and Scorpio can be very connected to resources. And then the 10th house, which connects to our career, and the midheaven, which is most often in the 10th house, but well, that depends, not always. But so the 10th house and then the midheaven, because the midheaven is the career angle. So that can tell us something about our money. And then also the planets of Jupiter and Venus. And Jupiter is really where we have um the potential to like expand and to experience abundance, but it can also be a planet connected to excessiveness or overindulgence. So it's something like to be mindful there. And then Venus connects a lot to, it can be connected to money, but also like our values and how our values is specifically connect to our money experience. So those are like the key points in the chart that tell us about our money. Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing this. I was like taking notes. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I will link everything up, of course, but for anyone listening right now who wants to like quickly switch over and find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so on my website or my Instagram primarily, and both of those are Lena Papadopoulos, and I know you will share the
Yeah, we'll
links.
put the links in there so you can find them in the show notes or wherever you're watching this. If you're on YouTube watching this interview, you can find all the details to Lena as well. Oh my gosh, it was as always a pleasure. Thank you so much for this conversation. It was so enriching, so expanding. I've taken my notes. So I'm gonna go now and check. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for your time, your presence, and everyone else. I will be back with you next week. Bye for now.